Welcome to a new video in my How to Fly series. In this series I explain how to operate and how to fight an aircraft of the IL-2 Great Battle series, and today we take a look at the Spitfire Mk. The Spitfire Mk is a single-engine, single-seat fighter first used in 1943 mainly to counter the Focke-Wulf 190, which surprised the British in 1942. The Spitfire Mk we have in-game is a version from 1944 however, and flew until the end of the war. The aircraft features an armament of two 20mm Hispano cannons and two 50 caliber machine guns. The Spitfire is a highly maneuverable fighter and feared for its tight turn and steep climb. In this how-to series we will explore how to operate this aircraft and we will find strengths and weaknesses. And today in this video we will begin with some basic knowledge about the cockpit layout. Let's take a look around the cockpit of the Spitfire. I will start with the altimeter and will continue mainly in a clockwise manner. If you watched my P51 tutorial, the altimeter will be familiar to you. It displays the altitude in feet with three hands. The large one displays 100 feet intervals, the middle one 1000 feet intervals, and the small one 10,000 feet intervals. Right above the altimeter is the speedometer. It's indicating your airspeed in miles per hour. Note it features two scales. The outer ring, the outer one, reaches from 0 to 280 miles per hour and the inner one from 280 miles per hour and upwards. To the right of that we have the artificial horizon. In this sim you use it mainly for flight within clouds or fog when you don't have any visual aids about your orientation in relation to the ground. Further to the right we have the vertical speedometer. It's showing the rate of climb or descent in 1000 feet per minute. Further to the right we have the RPM indicator, displaying the revolutions per minute of the crankshaft in your aircraft, which is important for the general engine operation and engine control. We will discuss engine control in a later video. To the low right we see the engine's boost pressure indicator. It's displaying the amount of air fed to the engine for the combustion process. In British planes, this amount of air, boost, is measured in pounds per square inch. At 0 pounds of boost you are feeding the engine air as dense as it is on ground level in the standard atmosphere. Everything above, 1 pound, 2 pounds, 3 pounds, 12 pounds and so on, Spitfire's supercharger is compressing the air and allowing for more power. More air can be used to burn more fuel. Further, low right you can read off the coolant temperature, which won't be of interest for you in most cases, at least I hope, since the aircraft features a pressurized automated water radiator. So no need to check it when everything is fine, but in case you have a leak or something, you want to check that. Maximum rated temperature of the water is 135 centigrade. The same goes for the oil temperature, gauge to the left. No need to check it constantly, but in case of damage, try to keep the oil temperature below 105 centigrade. Below the temperature gauges, we find the fuel indicator. It's displaying the fuel load in imperial gallons, meaning 1 gallon equals 4.546 liters. In a rush, multiply by 4 and use the rest as a security margin, or as an alternative, just use gallons from the get-go for your calculations. Note that the fuel indicator only shows one of the two fuel tanks in the Spitfire, the lower one, which only contains 37 gallons. Furthermore, the pilot in the real Spitfire back then had to push this little black button next to the fuel indicator to get a reading. We can't do that in-game manually. This is done automatically in intervals when the aircraft is either on the ground or in a steady flight in the air. And this drives me nuts, but it is like it is. Then the upper scale of the gauge is showing your fuel amount when the aircraft's tail is on the ground. The scale you need to use in flight is the lower one. I don't think I ever talked that much about any fuel gauge in the past, even the Yax fuel gauge was more straightforward, but the Spitfire takes the cake here. Further left we find the turn and slip indicator. I personally use it mainly for the slip indicator, which is in the top. It indicates if your aircraft is drifting, of course, with a little needle there, pointing up. If the needle is pointed in either direction, the aircraft is slightly drifting, of course, in that direction. This costs airspeed as the aircraft gets slowed down by drag. So for more efficient flying, it has to be corrected with some work on the rudder or via trim. More about trim and how to do that in a later video, of course. The needle below indicates how much your aircraft is rolling. I never really use that. In the center we find a compass, and the compass is borderline useless. Why, you may ask? Well, it gets stuck when the aircraft is rolled more than 30 degrees to either side. Now you may ask, why does a compass in a fighter aircraft get stuck when heavy maneuvers are flown? Isn't that the purpose of a fighter aircraft? And yeah, you are totally right. I don't know. That's maybe a question for Bismarck or so. For the initial navigation, this is of course fine. If you take off and don't bank too much, you fly to the target and you can navigate with that, no problem. But directly after an engagement, it's stuck for sure. But there's another compass behind the stick which works much more reliably. It's actually not realistically modeled, but it works for our purposes. The T-shaped indicator in the compass is indicating the heading of the aircraft in the current version of the game. This is wrong from a simulation standpoint, but isn't information you really need. The indicator should instead point north all the time. So in this screenshot here, the Spitfire is currently flying west, and in this one, the Spitfire is flying east. So now we are through all the main gauges and indicators of the Spitfire. There are a few more which can be of interest, but I will mention those when I get into the specifics at a later date. Same goes for the gun sight, for example. But this is it for now. In the next one we will learn how to start the aircraft, to taxi the aircraft, to take off and land again. Subscribe if you haven't already, so you don't miss it. See you in the next one.